Once again, this episode is being brought to you by Diesel Fuel Prints. Diesel Fuel has been in the business since 1991, and Andy has been printing all of my stickers since the early 2000s. He's been a guest on this show, and he's a friend and somebody I've worked with for a long time. So I can highly vouch for his business because I use it myself. Highest quality, weatherproof stickers, easy online ordering, and quotes on any size and shape sticker you can think of. Full color printing and 125 black and white stickers start as low as $25. Free shipping on all orders at dieselfuelprints.com. And my listeners get a 10% discount if they use the promo code AWP 2021. Check out Andy and his stickers. He does a great job. Let's get to the episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anyway Whatever podcast. I'm your host, Mike Fisher, and today's guest is Frank Kozik on this special 50th episode of the show. I can't believe we got to episode 50 already. It seems like we just started making this thing like a couple weeks ago. What a crazy year, right? Me and Frank have been friends for a long time. We do a lot of work together, and in fact, right now I do contract work for Kidrobot, where he is the chief creative officer. And I'm happy that he was able to come on. We go really in depth about how he became an artist and all the places that it's taken him over the years, and it is really cool. It is a really cool conversation. If you listen to this show and you aren't familiar with who Frank Kozik is, you've at least heard me talk about him on this show. He's like a big influence in my life, and they always say like you got to be careful to meet your heroes or your idols in life because you never know what you're going to get. And it just ended up turning out that me and Frank had a lot in common, and we've been friends now for over 20 years. So can't wait to get through this episode. As always, if you are watching this on the YouTube channel, hit subscribe and click the bell, like, comment, share. If you are listening to this on the audio version, subscribe wherever it is that you get your podcast content. And please feel free to share this. It was a really cool episode, and I think it should get out there, and people should get a chance to listen to Frank talk. You don't get to hear him talk about some of the stuff we go over very often. And in fact, we now have a Patreon, and the subscriptions are I'm amazed at how well it's doing, and I really appreciate it. Each subscription, makes it so I can keep making this show. So Frank gave me an extra 30 minutes of stuff for the Patreon, where we go over specifically Man's Ruin Records, which is his highly influential record label, and he never talks about that. So if you're interested in that, sign up for the Patreon and get that breakdown of how he began and how it ended up kind of falling apart at the end there. There's a lot of talk in the world about what happened with all that, and you can get it straight from the horse's mouth. We have merch as always, and we have t-shirts. The links are in the description below. If you want to know what gear I use to make this show, my camera, my microphones, all that kind of stuff, that is also in the description below. And I can't wait for you guys to get to sit and listen to this episode. It's really, really cool. Great, interesting chat with Frank Kozik. So yeah, see you on the other side.
Anyway, whatever, dude.
Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm your host, Mike, and today's guest, of course, is Frank Kozik. What's up, dude? How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm chilling like a villain in my fucking lair, baby. I'm enjoying the pandemic.
You're enjoying the pandemic in your mansion.
It's a dream come true for me. I don't have to go anywhere, man.
Yeah, it's been, I've said the same thing. It's like, I've worked for myself as an artist. Like I isolate. I've been isolating for 10 years. This wasn't like a huge change for me.
Well, so with some of my new gigs, man, the last 5 years, I've been like having to like travel like a third of the time. So I'm spending like, 4 months a year in fucking shitty hotels and on the airports, and it's just getting old. So here it's like, I can just stay home all the time. And I like staying home because,
For people who aren't aware, or listeners of mine who aren't familiar with Frank, Frank is a graphic designer, artist, illustrator, painter extraordinaire. He kind of got famous in the 90s for revolutionizing, bringing back the screen printed rock poster, and since then has gone into doing record label and toys, and he now runs the company Kidrobot, the toy company Kidrobot. So when he says he's traveling a lot, I'm assuming it's for the toy business.
Yeah, it's like, having to go to the factories in China, having to go to all the cons everywhere, having to go talk to, because, we do a lot of licensing. So you have to go talk to all the movie studio people and all the TV network people. And it got to be a real hassle. But now, because of the pandemic, I was able to get the owner to like let me send everybody works remote now. So we don't even have an office location.
Oh, wow. Which
is awesome, because before I was limited to employees in a certain geographical area. Now I can hire people all over the world.
Right.
So a much wider pool of talent. It's pretty cool.
So you don't suppose when things open back up, you guys will have an office anywhere?
No, we'll stay remote permanently.
Wow, that's amazing.
I can get a wider spread of talent, and everybody's happy, and they're all actually more productive because they're not wasting half their day driving to work and going to get lunch commute. And all. They're just like in their home studio, right?
Yep.
Relaxed. They can focus on the work. There used to be a lot of office drama. That's gone, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty good. It's pretty good, and people seem to be generally happier. And since we reduced our overhead in one area, it allowed us to raise wages in another area. So
nice.
Everyone got a bump too. So it worked out really well.
That's awesome. That's super cool. I like hearing that, because that was always the thing when I worked at a place. It was always like, I got like 3 hours of my day is like lost. It lost to getting ready and getting out of the house and driving somewhere and then getting settled into work. And then and now you got the exact opposite problem when you get home. And it's like, and in LA, you always have the traffic, no matter what you are, where you are.
And because the core of the company is all creative, so they're all illustrators and digital sculptors, they're in an environment where no one's music is annoying them.
Right.
Nobody's phone calls are bothering them. You know how this is. Like,
of course.
You sit down and you get into your shit, you get into working, and it's just a lot better. And for me, it's like I'm in paradise. Like I've caught up and done like new stuff and like all kinds of great stuff because I can be hyper focused.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to miss coming up and seeing you in your art studio every 6 months, because I loved hanging out in that spot with you. But I guess we'll just do it at your house when everything opens back up.
Well, I tried to, when I made the transition, I was like, I need to stop leasing. I need to buy someplace. And I looked around San Francisco and I couldn't find any commercial buildings that were affordable, because it was at the height of everything. And even the houses in San Francisco weren't affordable for me. So,
which is crazy.
I'm just 20 minutes north up in Marin. And, I got a house that would cost 3 times as much in San Francisco. I got the whole downstairs to work in. I set up a sculpting studio, a painting spot, like a woodworking shop. It's great, dude.
That's great. Awesome.
And, we kept and I still have the apartment in San Francisco. So if we want to, go do San Francisco shit, we can just go to our old house. So.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that you'd kept that spot.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's perfect.
Well, good for you. So you are completely out of that art studio space then?
Oh yeah. It's been over 2 years now.
Yeah.
I tried to buy the building. They didn't want to sell it. So and they kept raising the rent. And so it just didn't make it. I mean, for what I used to pay for the lease on the art space, I bought this house.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
So it's a
That's
lot better deal.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we moved out here to the valley from Echo Park. Is like, we got twice as big a house for a third of the money that we would have had to pay down. And then I got a 400 square foot art studio, which I could have never had there. And I was renting this terrible, awful place in a gang-ridden, last shitty neighborhood.
You were like in Echo Park
LA
or something,
County.
right?
That's where, our house was in Echo Park, like right across from the park. And then I had an
Right.
art studio in East Hollywood that was still completely gang
Back
controlled.
in the late 80s, early 90s, I had a friend that lived there, and he lived in one of those houses right there where you had to go up like a million stairs to get to.
Yeah.
He was up in one of those fucking things, man. And we would hang out on his porch and watch all the shit going on around the pond down there in the evening.
Yeah,
It was
it's right where I lived.
Super nasty.
Yeah, it was like by the time we were there, there was just like one murder a year on our block instead of like 10. So and then like they completely renovated the park. And once the park was renovated, it was, it's like nice there now. It's totally gentrified. It's not sketchy at all anymore. But yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about like your history and how you kind of ended up getting into being an artist. And I know you were born in Spain, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was no plan. I never thought it would happen. Never even really considered it as a viable thing. It's just something I kind of fell into. I was, American dad. He was a military guy, Spanish mother. Born and lived in Spain and other places abroad until I was about 14. Then I came over to the States. This was like 1976 to live with my dad in a really shitty part of Sacramento, North Highlands. I grew up in kind of a fascist police state where everything was controlled. All media was controlled. All behavior was controlled. There was, one way to do it and one way only. And life was very constricted. And I came to the States and it was like, I had the party dad. He was just like an alcoholic party dad. He didn't give a fuck what I did. And I was like, whoa, this is like America in the 1970s when it was awesome. Okay. Like drugs were cool. You could get laid. You could do whatever the fuck you wanted to. Right. So I immediately was like, fell into like total scumbaghood. Right. And loved it. Spent a couple of years living around Northern California. I split from my dad's house about when I was like 15 and a half. I got a driver's license, bought a car and left. Lived out of my car for a while. Lived in, party houses, just had a really weird time. And then things got a little sour for me. So I joined the military to get away from my situation. Mm-hmm. Did 4 years in the Air Force. It was good for me. I learned how to do stuff. I learned how to troubleshoot and how to understand a process and how to achieve goals.
Sure.
So I think if you're a drifter with nothing going on, you could do a lot worse than going in the military and learning a few things.
Sure.
So I'm very pro-military in that aspect.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that. For some reason, I thought you were Army. I didn't know that you were Air Force. That's awesome. Like, it's not easy to get into the Air Force. You gotta be.
Well,
what happened
smart. is that like I got busted, right, and I was about to turn 18, and the judge guy was pretty cool, and he's like, "Look, you can go. We can take you over, and you can recruit yourself for something, or I'll sentence you as an adult." And I'd already been to the Chico Youth Farm once, and that was fucked enough. So I was like, I don't want to go to real jail because I don't want my asshole violated, basically. So I was like, okay, I'll join. I'll go. And the nearest recruiting station was an Air Force recruiter. It was in the Westgate Mall in Sacramento. So went over to the Westgate Mall with the sheriff, took me over there. Sat down, did their fucking test, and I aced their test because it wasn't like brain surgery, dude. Okay. And I did get a pretty good education when I was living overseas. And so the guy was ecstatic, like, yes, you got 100%, like, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I don't want to like be in the war or anything, man. So what's got the longest school, right? Because I knew that you would go to training.
Sure.
And so they signed me up for this like electronic shit.
That's smart.
Radar stuff. And it had like a 18-month training. So I was like, I'll do that. And They put me on a bus to Oakland. I sat in a shitty hotel in Oakland for like 6 weeks waiting to go in.
Oh man.
Uh,
Was
they
this
paid
like
for it.
79-ish?
Yeah. So Jack London Square area, which was like a real slum then. There was all these like residency hotels. So the military. So like I was in this giant hotel and it was like dudes going to the Navy, the Army, like you had to wait, right? So spent like 6 weeks there, fucking just in this shitty hotel, and then bunk beds. And then they sent me to I went to San Antonio for basic training. Spent time in Georgia training up in the mountains. Spent a lot of time in Biloxi, Mississippi training. And then finally, the best luck I ever had in my life is I had volunteered for all overseas assignments, right? I was like, oh, I want to go somewhere weird. So
yeah, sure.
So I volunteered, like, I'll go to Germany, I'll go to Turkey, I'll go to Greenland, whatever, I don't care, So of course they send me to Texas, right? Which was the best thing that ever happened, because where they sent me was Austin, Texas. Right when Austin got super cool with like this emerging punk rock scene. Mm-hmm. So I ended up in Austin, Texas in 1980.
Wow.
Right. And so it was a really small Air Force base. It's the airport now. It was like this little Air Force base.
Bergstrom, is that what it's called?
And I was attached to a reconnaissance squadron. So we had our own little deal, right? And there weren't any lodgings on the base for us. So I got paid extra to get an apartment in town. So that was cool, right? I bought a motorcycle. And so like the second or third night I was in town, and a lot of your viewers will know, I was like walking down Congress Avenue, and there used to be a punk rock club down there called Club Foot it's gone now, but it was behind the old Greyhound station, which I think is now like a Discovery Children's Museum still. So like the second night I was there, and I knew about punk rock. I'd never gone to anything really, didn't know any punkers, but I got turned on to it by Dr. Demento in the late 70s on the radio.
Same, okay. Like that is the same. When I recorded that show every weekend. Right.
And I had this friend, Eric Holsinger, who used to send me tapes. Like he would record tapes and send me like mixtapes when I was in the military and training. So I knew about a lot of bands, but I'd never ever seen one. So I'm walking down Congress Avenue going, okay, is this all just like going to be like frat boys and cowboys here? And I saw a guy with green hair. Okay. So Billy Pringle, this guy, he was in a couple of bands in Austin. He appeared like a magical fucking elf bopping down the street with his fucking green hair. And I was like, whoa. So I actually ran up to this dude, right? All fucking stupid. I'm like, dude, are you punk rock? And he's like, yeah, man. He's like laughing at me. I'm like, where do you go to punk out, man? He's like, follow me, right? And so like, I followed Billy to like Club Foot, which was like, ended up being this sort of legendary place. And I immediately I was like, this is rad, because back then, the scene was really interesting. It wasn't segmented. So like this one place, like the gays went there, and the new wavers and the weird acid cowboy people and the mushroom heads and the hippies and the punk rockers and the skinheads and like a million insanely cool looking chicks. Right. It was just like, and it was a really big kind of 2-story place. I was like, this is wow. Right. So I immediately just got really into going to see bands and stuff. And then, a little bit later, a few months later, I met some guys that were doing mail art, which was a thing where people used to send weird shit to each other in the mail. And through them, I did
some of that in the 90s.
Right. So through them, I started corresponding with like this guy, Dr. Al Ackerman, up in the Northwest, and the Throbbing Gristle people in England. And we were just doing weird flyers to put up on the street that weren't just weird art shit, right? We had this thing called the Art Maggots for a little while. And so some local bands saw our like weird nonsense flyers, Xeroxes, and like, hey, will you do a show poster? So right around 1981, I started doing like Xerox black and white posters for punk rock shows. And we would collaborate on them. So I think the first one I did all on my own was like a Stray Cats poster or something. 81, we did X, right? All the local bands. So I started just so for 4 or 5 years, I would just go to a million shows. And once in a while, I would do a little Xerox poster, my stolen Kinko's card. And, I snagged like an unlimited Kinko's card from somebody and go around, put up the posters. And eventually, I started working at some clubs, and I met this one guy, really great guy. His name is Brad First. He's like the great unsung hero of Austin. punk rock. He was the weird anonymous weed smoking dude that like had all the cool venues over time and never got his due. And he really liked posters and he believed in posters. So he started paying me to do like 2-color print jobs and stuff. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it's all just luck. It all just fell into this. I tried to be in a band. I suck. Right. All my friends were doing stuff. And back then it was important to do something.
Sure.
In the scene, not just be an observer, but to be a participant.
Of course.
This is like, the early to mid 80s Austin punk scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Which was like its own bubble, but all the national bands came through there on their way.
Yeah. If you were a California band, you were trying to get to the East Coast to tour, you were going to play in Austin on the way.
There's no place else to stay for like 1,000 miles in either direction. So,
right.
So I got to see all the bands that became like really famous, like on their first tour, right? Because I either went to the show or worked the door at the club. And for a lot of them, I would do a poster and they would like my poster. And so later we would contact and will you do a poster for us here or there? And so I would. And I was like, well, this is going to be kind of pretty cool. So I figured, and I just had regular jobs. I worked construction. I delivered car parts, whatever. I worked in restaurants. I just had like shitty jobs and worked the door at clubs, which, didn't pay very much. But,
you're a big dude though. So that probably, you were probably able to get work that way. And
you got to see all the shows for free. Right.
Yeah. Yep.
And, girls, a lot of girls. So eventually, so Austin, they're almost gone now, but the alternative weekly newspapers were a big deal for 20 or 30 years in this country, right? Before the rise of the internet killed it off.
Right.
So Austin had one of the first alternative weeklies called the Austin Chronicle. And so the first year they did a best of issue and I won best poster.
Oh, wow.
Which was for a Butthole Surfers show at the Ritz Theater. And I was like, wow, I won like best poster. I go, this has got to be good for something. So there was one print shop in town that was the cool print shop that did all the wacky t-shirts for all the restaurants and bars and stuff, right? So I went there and they had a production job open. And I went there and I lied. I was like, look, I won this award. You should hire me. And the guy's like, oh, do you know how to run a stat camera? You know how to do all this, arcane shit now. And I didn't, right? But I was like, yes, I do. And so like, the guy that was leaving was there for a couple of days. I'm like, bro, show me everything. So he showed me how to do all the crap, right? And I started working at this like printing shop. So we did t-shirts and they had a flat printer and they made stickers and all this shit. So that's how I learned to do art for production, right? By lying my way into this job.
Same here. Did an internship, graphic design internship at a computer company. I learned how to use a stat camera, all the waxer, the
all that
rub-on
shit,
type, like all that shit.
Ordering the lead slug type, all that crap.
When I was there, actually, Adobe Illustrator version 1 came out, and I looked at it and I was like, yeah, I don't think that's for me. And then that's what I ended up doing anyway, 20 years later, 10 years later.
And so, so basically, and what happened was like, I was getting paid like, I don't know, $6 an hour or something. And I was doing all these t-shirt designs for these restaurants when they became very popular. And so I started thinking, I'm like, well, like the guy that owns the print shop's charging them like $500 per design. I'm getting paid about $80 to do one hourly. I'm like, So I went to the woman that was like the buyer for the restaurant chain. Terry. I was like, here's the deal. I go, I noticed that you like my designs a lot. I'm going to leave there. I'll do your designs for $300 each. Will you give me the business? And she's like, of course. Right. So boom, automatically I was making a living. Right. Because I stole the gig from this guy. So for 3 or 4 years, I made a living doing like commercial t-shirt designs for fraternities, theme restaurants, local businesses, marathons, bicycle races, all that kind of stuff. I developed a style, one kind of style there, the really bright cartoony style. And I was making like $2-3 grand a month, dude. And this was like, 1989, 1990. That was like really good money, right?
Yeah, sure. Especially in Austin. Yeah.
So I had like fucking big old house to myself and, started doing all these really elaborate, I bought a silkscreen press, and I started doing all the big posters. So just for fun. And I would just sell the posters, for, I'd make the deal. You get free posters. You let me sell a bunch. I'd be selling them. I'd sell them to the local record stores for like $5 or $10 each. And some of those posters are like $5,000 now.
Dude, I saw that Dazed and Confused one that you posted that just sold for like $4,000. I was like, shit.
No problem there, because Linklater, I licensed that to him, and he's paid me. I made a lot of money off that poster over the years, because it's been in like special editions. It's been used for shit, and every time Linklater, he's really good about paying the creative people. I made a lot of money off that design over the years.
Oh, it's a good one.
So that's how I started, right? So it was just like I fell into a sweet deal and I took advantage of it. So I built up the poster thing. I did it internationally. I got a big article in Rolling Stone in the early 90s. I got picked up by a gallery in Los Angeles and Sherman Oaks. I went out there to visit. I went to a dinner. I went and cold called Billy at La Luz. Right?
Billy Shire, yeah.
Yeah. So Billy Shire is another super important person in my life. I walked into the soap plant on Melrose with my little portfolio of crap, right? It was like, hey, man, I do this. And he liked it. He gave me my first show. That would have been, I think, like 1990, 1989, 1990. I did my first show at the old soap plant on Melrose.
Dude, the first day I moved to Los Angeles and for a job, like my boss took me to Fat Burger, which became my favorite place on earth to eat. And we went to Soap Plant when it was still on Melrose. And I was like,
and how they had the gallery upstairs, right? So,
and I was like, I want to do this, whatever all this is. I want to be involved in that.
It was totally cool. I did a show. I had fun. I did, I don't know, a dozen shows with Billy over the years at his different places. And through doing those shows, I got to meet kind of like, all the real vital people in the Los Angeles, like lowbrow art movement. So I got to meet like Adam Parfrey and Robert Williams and the Piz and Coop and like, all those artists. Right. And, there was some good times. We did some crazy fucking shows, dude, in the 90s there. A lot of people would come to those shows.
Yeah.
And then,
right around had you moved to San Francisco yet, or?
No, I mean, what it was is I was living in Austin, and I was getting a little bizarre. I was like, because life was too easy, kind of. So I was about to turn 30. So I was living in this big old house in Austin. And the thing is, all of my friends were coming and going. Like, most of my friends were going to school there, right? So they would come. You'd know them for a couple of years, and then they would go grow up and go be someplace, right? And I would still be there. And it was one of those things like, there's every college town has this like population of like hang around people that hang around the college, right?
The townies.
Not so much the townies, more like the creeps that are there to, you know what I'm saying, that like to sponge off the college scene. And I was becoming one of those kind of people in my social life, right? So I kind of didn't like it. And I was just getting slobby. It's like, I would just wear like a pair of shorts all year. I didn't have a bank account because I didn't need one. I didn't have a driver's license because I didn't need one. I wouldn't lock the door. And I remember just like one, and then like a lot of my friends left. And I remember there was this one winter, it was like, got kind of lonely, right? I was like, well, I'm not living an adult lifestyle. Like, I need to do something. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And then I came out to San Francisco because I got a book deal from Ron Turner at Last Gasp, another influential person in my life. And he had just bought this big building in the Mission and he fixed it up, and there was workspaces for lease downstairs. And, he handed me a wad of cash and he was like showing me his building. And he's like, man, you should move here. I'll lease you one of these spaces. I was like, okay, deal. And I gave him some money back, right? Went back to Austin, packed all my shit, and just on a whim moved to San Francisco. I didn't know anything about it. I fucking hated it for years.
What year are we talking?
This is like February of 93.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And I fucking hated it. I moved here and I saw it on a sunny day. It was a sunny day in the Mission and it was warm and it just seemed like this is great. And then I moved out here and it rained for 6 weeks. And I couldn't find an apartment. Like, so I was living out of the workspace, no hot water. Right. I was like, okay, I made a mistake, but eventually I found a nice apartment, which I still have.
Have you been in that same apartment since you moved to San Francisco? 27 years. That's amazing.
I'll
dude.
never get rid of it. I mean, because it's a really nice apartment with like, a 4-car garage. So, right by the park. So I've got one of those, deals, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And then over time, well, the poster thing got bigger and bigger. And I started going to Japan a lot because of the posters. And then in the 90s, I got a lot of big commercial jobs because of the posters. I mean, that Rolling Stone article, really, you get an article in Rolling Stone, man, they come knocking, right?
Yeah, I bet they do.
So I made a ton of money from every company in the world: alcohol, cigarette, tobacco,
Yeah, I remember
sportswear,
like Nike
Gatorade.
stuff, like
Yeah, I
Gatorade,
just,
Nike, all that
they
stuff.
were, all that shit was hot, right? So it was like grunge rock was a big deal. They wanted to sell stuff to kids. So I made a fortune in the 90s, Altoids, doing commercial work. And then I took a bunch of that money. I took the Nike money I made actually. And I was like, so the way you want to ask me, I'm just talking here.
Yeah, no, it's fine. That you're doing really you're doing great. I think when me and you became friends was like probably 2000, between 2000 and 2001 or two, and
Gigposters.
yeah, through gigposters.com. And
oh yeah, you and Murph or whatever.
Yeah, me and Murphy.
Whatever happened to Murphy?
Mike. Yeah, he's still doing it. He's still being Mike. him and Carla, just like Mike. Mike always was in the screen printing business, and then kind of worked his way up to the point where he was kind of running a company that they make like they license like all the major muscle cars design, like stuff like like Dodge, and then like he will like they
sell like shirts at NASCAR races and shit. Where do they sell
more
their
like
shit?
like if you go into Walmart and you see like a Super B t-shirt, that kind of stuff, or like
cool.
Like they will source out, like if you're having a golf tournament and you need a shirt, like they will be the middle guy for that kind of stuff.
They're like a broker.
Yeah. And so he just does that. And he still makes posters because he wants to. Obviously he can't right now because nobody can, but he's doing good. I think him and Carla are trying to move to Hawaii and kind of semi-retire. Carla had like a big business doing interior design for all the tech companies, and she got tired of that shit. And so I think they're a bunch of our friends that we grew up with in the Bay Area music scene, like moved over to Hawaii, like to Maui.
Yeah, my friend Russ from the Demonics just bought a house over there. He really likes it because he still surfs and stuff.
Yeah, like George from High on Fire, like he was over there for a while. I think he's back in Oakland now though. But yeah, so they're trying to move to Hawaii, and like, I think they're talking about goat farming or something. Some fucking weird shit.
We're gonna live on the fruit from the jungle, man.
Totally. But yeah, I know, they're kind of hippies anyway. But so yeah, we became friends. Like right when we became friends was kind of right after Man's Ruin Records, which we'll talk about a little bit in a bit. But and I remember at the time, like you were telling me like that you were like doing these jobs for like corporations in Japan where they would like pay you like six figures to do a logo for like that was only going to appear on a cell phone. So it was like,
it was the weird bubble. It was like the Japanese bubble economy. And my friend, you had to have like a patron over there. So the guy that was like my patron was this really chill guy. He was like a beatnik millionaire guy, Seiji. And him and his friends had been a big deal in the 70s, and they seated all like the Nego Bape guys. All those guys were their like apprentice guys. Mm-hmm. So they really liked the fact that I did silk screening. They thought that was really interesting because it's like an ancient Japanese tradition, right? And I was doing like this very modern stuff with this archaic technology, and they were really fascinated by that. So I started going over there. I got along really well with those guys. And so I actually lived over there for a while.
I remember you had an apartment over there still when we became friends, and you would like go over a couple times a year.
Yeah, they would hook me up like, whenever you want to come over here, let us know. You can stay at this free apartment, which was right in the super rad part of Tokyo and all this shit. So I would go over there a lot, and I absorbed a lot. I started getting, and that's where I got turned on to the toys the first time. We could talk about that later. Yeah, Japan was really interesting. I still do stuff in Japan. I actually just got a job yesterday. So I'm still doing, it's mostly textile work, like designs for clothing and stuff.
Yeah, I remember when I was up, I think the last time we were hanging out, you were telling me that you'd been doing a bunch of shirt designs and like in Sweden and Japan and stuff. And like you were doing really well with that.
So I still do a lot of apparel for Europe and Asia. I keep busy.
Is that the stuff that you've been posting the last week? Because I've been seeing a lot more of your older kind of 90s.
Well, that stuff is basically,
stuff.
I got really lazy about my merch scene. So it's like all my old merch companies kind of over time, they're all like fading out, right? Like, because I've been merching stuff with like people like Poster Pop for 30 years. And, Matt's like retired, like he's not. So I got new people going, hey, we'll be more aggressive with it. You'll make more money. So basically, I like sort of did all new merch deals for everything.
Oh, so nice.
What I've been doing is going through. Everybody wants the old designs, right?
Sure.
So I've been going through and redoing them all as like clean Illustrator files because they were all just a jumble of some were slides, some were not. So it's like they're like, we will pay you for that. I'm like, fuck, I can't give it to you because I don't have a file, right? So during the pandemic, I've been methodically going through like hundreds of old designs and recreating them all as clean Illustrator designs so I can merch them out.
That's super smart, man.
It sounds boring, but the checks are really fat. So
I bet they are. I wanted to ask a little bit about the Smoking Rabbit. What is the official name? I always call him the Smoking Bunny, but
it's Smorkin' Labbit. Smorkin' Labbit.
When did that dude come around, and how did he become like your kind of? I mean, he's like the symbol for Frank Kozik that most people know, right?
So in the late 90s, a few things happened, right? I was getting really tired of doing the poster thing. I mean, although I did it for a few more years. I was in the middle of doing the record label, and the record label went from being fun to being a hassle, like instantly. So Japan was like my escape hatch. Okay, so I would like go bail to Japan and just do like bullshit, right? Okay, so the Labbit. So in the 90s, I was really into Hello Kitty. Okay. I would collect Hello Kitty stuff. There was a really big Hello Kitty store in San Francisco, and the Hello Kitty was kind of a thing with like hipsters then, like it is now, but even back then. And so on my first trip to Japan, when I went over there, these guys were like, the people I was hanging out with are like, okay, you artist guy in Japan, what do you want to do? You want to go climb Mount Fuji or whatever the fuck, normal shit people want to do. And I'm like, no, dude, I want to go to Puro Land, which is like this like weird, shitty indoor theme park for Hello Kitty. And they were like appalled. They freaked out. They're like, are you a pedophile? I'm like, no. Well, you can't go there. He goes, that's for low-class people and only low-class children and their mothers can go there. You can't. They would just think it's too weird or whatever. And they're like, why do you like Hello Kitty? They were totally freaked out that I liked Hello Kitty, right? So I kind of try to explain to them my whole weird, trip with them, which is like, it's really hard to make a perfect character that doesn't really have a personality, and you can like use it to like tell your own story and all this sort of art babble shit that I was thinking about with Hello Kitty out. It's like a perfect thing, right? And they're like, huh, right? And they're like, well, you should do your own character if you think it's so cool. And I'm like, well, maybe something like this. And we were like in a bar or something, and I drew the first little shitty version of the Smoking Rabbit, like on one of those. I still have it, like on one of those round coaster things, right? Mm-hmm. He looked all seedy, and I'm like, yeah, this is like the guy that Kitty has a secret affair with. She comes over and fucks him in the middle of the night, kind of thing. And they're like, oh, that's really funny. You should do that. So I did. So I came back, and this is before toys even.
That's crazy that is almost the exact story of how Rat Fink came about. It was like eating lunch at a picnic table, talking shit about Mickey Mouse, and Ed Roth drew Rat Fink to be the counter to Mickey Mouse, and then the rest is fucking history.
So I came back, I started putting the rabbit on artwork, and I started, I made ashtrays and Zippo lighter sets.
I have one of those Zippos. I collected Zippos for a while because my great grandfather was a massive lighter collector, and so when I was in my 20s, I definitely have one of those Smoking Bunny
Zippo was
Zippos.
Cool for a while because they were going broke, and so they would like, we'll make you 100. We just want some money, right? And that's why, and Hazelmeyer did and then they got started popular again, and they got real Christian again. They wouldn't make weird shit anymore.
Because I know I have some Rat Fink Roth ones. I have a bunch of cool Zippos from the 90s.
So I started making, and then like, and then like in 1998, I was in Japan, and I saw my first vinyl toy. So it was like in Japan, they have these weekly magazines of what's cool or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And there was a little picture of this thing that looked like a little Captain Crunch character, but it would look kind of punk rock. It's the Bounty Hunter Kid Hunter figure. Google it. Bounty Hunter BXH Kid Hunter. And it was one of the first vinyl figures, art figures over there. So I was like, whoa, this is, I'd already been a toy collector. I'd collected old Japanese toys. I collected tin toys. So I was collecting toys from back in the 80s because there was also a subculture in punk rock of collecting Japanese toys.
Yeah,
I used to
look
like
behind
sell,
me.
I used to sell toys to like Danzig and shit when they came through on tour, right? And
yeah.
Tim Kerr was involved in that scene, the whole 9 years. So yeah, I've seen Danzig on my living room floor making monster noises playing with a bull-marked Godzilla.
I have a few friends who have that story.
In my house. In my fucking house. He's not related to Satan, dude. Okay. Anyways, so they're like, oh, we know the guy that makes that. He's a pretty cool guy. You want to go to his shop? I'm like, yeah. So I went there, and it was this guy Hikaru who had this like really cool little clothing shop called Bounty Hunter.
Bounty Hunter stuff is rad.
And it turned out that he liked my posters. So he was happy to meet me. And he's like, we should do a collaboration. I go, well, I really like these toys. I have this character. So my first vinyl toy was a version of the Smokin' Rabbit that I made with Bounty Hunter.
Oh, that thing must be worth a fucking fortune now.
I couldn't give them away at the beginning.
Of course not. That's how shit always goes.
Right. So that was my first collaboration. And on the and then about the same time, Medicom started up.
And I got some Medicom stuff back there.
So he started working with Medicom. So I started doing, so I did my first 5 or 6 toys just in Japan. I did the Bounty Hunter toy. I did a bunch of stuff with Medicom, Bear Bricks.
I remember the Bear Bricks,
Rabbits, right? And a Mickey Mouse. I did this like with Burton Snowboards and Medicom. I did the Wild Brain Mickey figure early.
Love that
my
one.
name's on it too. You can look it up. It's sweet. So I did my first few toys in Japan, right? And I got really excited because everything about it turned me on. The energy of it reminded me of punk rock. Okay.
Sure.
It was totally amazing to make a 3D object. All the people, all the Japanese dudes I was hanging out with that were doing the toy scene were all like super cool, right? I was like, whoa, this is really, and it wasn't like rock post, it was something different. Because here's the thing, man, like, the problem with music, and the reason, I am doing posters now, but the reason I really sort of stopped doing the music thing is that like it's a sideways move, okay? And so the thing is, like, even if you're really successful doing graphics for the music business, the world doesn't take you seriously.
Yeah, okay? Trust me, right? I know.
Oh, you're the poster guy or whatever, right?
The so you T-shirt guy.
Yeah, you can make
whatever.
I made a lot of money and I got a lot of attention, but it was all like kind of like, never going to be in the museum, bro, kind of a thing. And you have aspirations a little bit, right? So I was really burned out on doing work for music, and I got really burned out on the music scene because it's they talk about like the majors being fucked. At least they'll pay you. Like at some point, a major label, they will give you a giant check. They'll let you fuck yourself, but they'll give you a giant check. In the indie music world, you never even get a check. You just get fucked. So, right. So, and the internet was coming, and I could smell that was going to destroy it, right? Because who's going to pay for anything if you can get it for free?
Right.
Okay? And I got into some fierce battles at conferences with people like, like this is going to ruin it for bands. What are you? It's just because you own a record label, you're a creep. And I was right. They were wrong. So the toy thing, I got really obsessed with it because I was like, well, I really like this. I have a good feeling about this. So I quit doing music work. I kept doing commercial work to pay the bills naturally. I was at that point designing a lot of stuff for gumball machines, which was good training for the toys.
I remember you got me some work doing that when we were first hanging out doing that gumball machine stuff. Yeah.
So, I got exposed to a new world. I wanted to switch tracks. So I go, okay. So I got totally invested in the toys. I had a lot. And here's the funny story. So early, like 2000, 2001, I got another show at Lelou's. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to make it about all the toys. So I ordered all of my toys from Japan. I brought over all these toys, which are rare now, right? And I did a bunch of big paintings of the toys, right? So I did a whole like designer themed toy show thing, right?
I was at that.
Right. You saw that, right?
Yeah.
Everybody came up to me and they're like, what the fuck is this shit? Where are the rock posters? Are you a fucking fag now? What happened to you? Like, people were hostile about it, bro. And I thought it looked pretty good, that show.
Yeah, his paintings were amazing.
Right. And I was like, no, this is really cool. You'll see. This is like the new punk. I was a real big believer and was like, oh, you're fucking high or whatever. But I kept doing it. And then like 2 years later, it hit in the States, right? Kidrobot ramped up in New York. They called me. They're like, are you the dude? I'm like, yes, I'm the dude. Let's do stuff. Boom. I started doing stuff with them like their first year out. And then the toy thing has been great for me. I've done way more items. I've made way more money. I've had way more traveling around the world, first class, based on the toy thing. And it's really pleasing because it's a 3-dimensional object. And
yeah.
you know, and I
like the stuff you did, like the Mozart time, you know, and stuff. Those things are amazing. My whole career was,
I would always do something a little too early. Like, remember Betty Page? Like, I was into Betty Page before it got big, and by the time it was big, I was out of it. Right? I never stuck with anything long enough to ride the wave and really kill it. You know, I was always around and I always made good money, but I never like smashed it. With the toys I did, like I found it at the right time. I got into it. I kept at it when everybody was saying don't do it, and then it hit. And now, you know,
look at you now.
You know, you run Kidrobot. My own lines are successful, and I'm the chief creative officer for like a big toy company, and I do like a lot of you go next time you go buy a Star Trek toy, I probably oversaw it. So it's become this insane like total thing, and But my self-taught, always took advantage of situations. I would get interested in something and want to know how you did it, and then try to make it happen.
Well, yeah, I think that's why me and you were instant friends and have remained friends for the last 25 years.
Like the projects you do with us, you're like, I don't know if I can do this, but I'll give it a shot. And hey, it fucking worked out great, right? So,
right. The infamous project that I've been working on for 2 years, and I can never tell anybody about it. It's
it buys nachos.
It buys some nachos. Yeah,
hey, dude, I do a lot of work. I do a lot of work that my name's not on. Believe me,
well, over the years,
half the shit you see at the store, like my team did it. It's like it's bizarre how many licenses we have right now.
Well, that's the thing also too, is that I have worked for you over the last 20 years, on a lot of stuff for you that was Kozik designed, was Kozik branded stuff. And so that's kind of how, we have always had a really good professional working relationship, which has managed to become a cool friendship over the years, which for me is really cool.
Because you actually do shit, dude. Like, you're not full of shit. Like, you never break. I mean, most guys are like, believe me, man, I've reached out to a lot of people over the years, like, because as you know, I'm a really cooperative person when it comes to this kind of stuff, right?
Of course, yeah.
I like to make connections and to connect people, and we all prosper. That's always been my deal. Like, not compete, cooperate. A lot of people want it, but when you give them the opportunity, they fuck it off.
Right. Yeah. We have some friends in common who have done that to both of us.
Like the minute they're up to bat, they fucking choke. You never choked. So, you rule.
Well,
because, behind all the art, the sad reality is, like, it's not a charity. Somebody's got to make money off of it.
Right.
So It has to be done correctly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've always been super stoked on the stuff we've done together, and I'm happy to be continuing to do that. Keeps us in contact. We get to talk all the time, and that always makes me happy. So yeah, I mean, from like my vantage point, when you started working for Kidrobot, like the coolness and the variety of pieces that come out of Kidrobot exploded since you've been the creative officer there. And it's awesome to see. And like, you get like guys like Spanky Stokes, like I'll watch his YouTube channel and like he'll have new Kidrobot stuff. And like every time I'm like, this stuff's so good.
The thing was just like, it's a really great company, and it's a really interesting field to work in design wise. And Kidrobot did some amazing stuff, but it was it cost a lot of money, and a lot of investor money got squandered. Because they they would do a lot of really nice creation, but there was no business sense behind it. And so Kidrobot, and then that actually had to end. So when they got rid of the guy that founded the company, they tried to make it a business, and they hired a lot of like really normal people from sportswear companies to try and run it, and they ran it into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
The company that had been really vital became a boys club. The designs got like ugly and weird, like everything that made it interesting was gone, so naturally the company was going bankrupt, and they owed me a ton of money, right? They hadn't paid me royalties for a while because I've always licensed a lot of my stuff through that company. And so literally 2 days before it was going to get like whatever, everything was going to get landfilled, this guy bought it. I made it. He came to me. He's like, I want you to help me revive this because you've been here since the beginning. People seem to respect you and like your work. What will it take? I go, well, first I want to check for what I'm owed. He's like, no problem. Boom. He wrote me the check on the spot. And it was a lot of money. They hadn't paid me for like a long time. And then I told him, I go, well, look, for me to work full time, this is what I make yearly. So you're going to have to cover this nut. He's like, no problem. I go, I want the right to work on my own, to do, so basically I just was a total asshole. I was like, I want everything. I want a cake and a pony, everything. And the guy, like, he's like, okay, cool. We'll see what happens. And what happened is like, it was painful. Okay. For the first year or so, because the company had burned all its bridges and it was just, things were fucked. And so we went through and fixed everything. And now the company's making good quality products at a good price. It's making a profit, which it never did in its 17-year history before.
That's amazing.
I have assembled an amazing design team of people that absolutely are totally A, really cool to hang out with, and B, have got their fucking shit together. And the guy that owns it is super hands off. He comes in once in a while and pokes at something, but he's like usually like, and we're rolling just fine, man.
Yeah, it's funny. And, I for the listeners, I do contract work for Kidrobot through Frank, and like literally when we get off of here, I have to answer emails from a bunch of those cool people you were just talking about. Everybody over there that I've dealt with is fucking awesome, man. Everybody's super cool and super nice. Yeah. That is a good team. You're absolutely
it's a good team. We're a very egalitarian situation. There's no politics. It's all pretty cut and dried. And, and we're expanding. I mean, I'm probably going to do another hire soon. So
that's amazing.
And what's nice is the toy scene was really good to me. Okay. And a lot of artists in the toy scene, just like the poster scene, were really accepting and really good to me and helped me. So whenever I can, through the auspices of the company, I try to give back. I try to give back to the community. I try to give back to the collectors. I try to give back to the artists that gave to me, just like with the record label before it kind of fell apart. To me, the toy scene is like the punk rock scene, and it's like to me, I like it when it's cooperative and everybody gets a piece of pie and has a good time doing it.
Yeah, I really like, one of the things I like about the toy scene is that there's big companies like your company, and then there are still a lot of DIY people who are like doing like resin sculptures, like, because that was one of the deals that we did. Was I had a resin sculpture of this triangle piece that actually the paintings back
we made those for you, right?
I did a run of them of like 50, and they sold out in an hour and a half. And so I came to you and I was like, do you want to publish this thing? And we did those things, and they sold really well. I actually have a new one coming. It's getting sculpted right now. But yeah,
that's what I had. I used to have my own resin facility for those that are still listening to this boring shit.
Was it officially called Happy Plastics? Was that the?
No, it's my corporation. It just had, that was when I had the great big space in downtown.
Yeah,
and I had this big back area, and I set it all up to do the resins.
Hero, that guy Hero did.
Ryan Hero worked for me.
Yeah,
and
he ran all those for me. He was a cool guy. Like,
because there was a period there where I got really interested in doing resin stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we did really well with those. I was super stoked, and I'm gonna have another edition out here pretty soon. But yeah, I still need to talk to you a little bit about doing something with Kidrobot. But we'll get to that at another time. So, dude, that's rad. Like, I'm glad that things are going so well still at Kidrobot. That's I know for me, I kind of assumed that the work I do for you was going to dry up because of the pandemic. And so like I started this show because I was like, well, I guess I'm probably not going to be working on that. I might as well find something to do. And then like right away, you guys were like, let's do stuff.
So here's what's happened. It's like in the last 3 years, I opened up China for myself and for the company. Okay. Because I met some guys, I worked with them. I went over there a lot. Figured it all out. So we're selling a lot to China more all the time. And I am doing a lot of business in China that nobody over here ever sees with my stuff. Okay?
Sure.
So I managed to open up a major new market that for some reason they had never reached before. Also, I'm a firm believer of the internet and we had a website like the second day AOL came online. Like I had a website in like 1995. Okay. So I don't know shit about about coding or anything, but very aware of the value of the internet. So the one thing about Kidrobot, it was a very backwards looking business. They were not a believer in stuff like the internet and all that stuff. So
internet sales. And
so I was always pushing to go everything online, all the way from working remote to robust web sales to cooperative ventures with other resellers, all this stuff. And the owner became less resistant to over time. But when the pandemic hit, he finally was like, okay, go do it. So he let me do all that stuff that I wanted to. He let me like amp up the e-commerce side of it. We all went remote, everything. We're using all these online cloud servers, and we're totally in the future now. Okay.
That's so killer.
And what it's done is it's reduced actual overhead. So like we have unlimited storage on the cloud. Okay. And we do a lot of, our files are, it's a lot there. Okay.
Yeah.
It's way, way cheaper than having like this old physical servers in the closet back, all the shit that we used to do. We turned it on. So now it's like overhead's gone in a toilet. So we're not paying any physical overhead basically. All right. Which allows me to buy top line equipment for all the creative staff to have at home and work with. Right. We have like really excellent top of line cloud server situation. The fucking tech support guy is fucking there. Everything works really good. Profits through the fucking roof. And because everyone's sitting at home, collectors actually have more money to spend now. Because instead of like spending $5,000 to get to a stay at Comic-Con and a couple of grand on their toys or whatever, they're like, I got $7,000 for toys. And so basically everybody I know that is a online retailer or can work remote is actually prospering.
Dude, every single artist that I've talked to on this show, every single artist is like, I just stopped putting band names on my posters, and now I sell my own work. Like every artist I know in the pandemic has been like, I've never done better.
So the long term, the pandemic, while it sucks for people that have to work in the service sector, and I hope it's over immediately. And yes, you should wear a double fucking mask, and you should follow the fucking rules and not be an asshole about shit.
Get a goddamn vaccine as soon as you can.
Yeah. For coincidentally and luckily, like all this stuff I've been pushing for, it made it happen for the company and for me and for the employees. And what's nice is like, really skilled cat in Brazil works for us. This guy's like an amazing sculptor, super nice guy. And because it's all remote, like he can be in Brazil making American money, like he's happy. So it's like, it's a perfect situation. And it really mirrors what's nice about the toys. The toys are very international, so.
That's awesome, man.
And there's like, I have something to do every day for the rest of my life. I won't live to complete all the projects I have lined up,
Right. Well,
I'm excited, and I wish I was 30 years younger just so I could have the time to
I
do
know,
all the
right?
stuff that I want to do. Yeah.
Dude, I was talking to a friend on the phone, who I do graphic design work for, who's a stand-up comic, and we were discussing. I was like, dude, I could live 4 lifetimes, and I'd never have enough time to do all the things that I would like to do. Like and I think that's how come we've done so well as friends and business people. Is one of the things I realized really quickly on in our interactions together is that we see almost everything almost exactly the same. Like if you put something in front of us, our
It's
description of that thing will be almost exactly the same.
It's common sense, you know.
Yeah, I think maybe. I mean, I don't know how much common sense I have, but I think I got a little.
I don't know,
Anyway.
dude. You raised a family. That's, you know, a hard thing to do, and your kids turned out good. So, you know,
my kids are pretty awesome. I think
right?
everybody who knows my kids would say that they are pretty awesome.
So, you know,
people.
you were a functioning adult early in your life.
Yeah.
As you know, a lot of people that are your age or my age that are in our world, you know, they're still like 11 years old, dude.
That is true.
Right. God bless them. But
yeah, there's still a lot of, you're right. I still have a lot of friends who are my age. And I'm like, what are you doing with yourself?
You know, they're like, I figured out how to cook a chicken. Like, you know, okay, dude, you're 45. Come on.
Dude, totally. Yeah, dude, that's rad. Like, I appreciate your time and I appreciate you coming on, man. It was super
and
cool
people
to
that
talk
wanted
to
to
you.
get in the game. I mean, you know, I'm not going to say it was easy. Okay. So, you know, a lot of lonely nights, a lot of going in to the record label office on Christmas Eve and stuffing records all by myself overnight. You know, a lot of failures, one bankruptcy. I mean, you know, but at the end of the day, for whatever reason, you know, I was able to get up every day and do something and then keep my mind open to new experiences and not just, you know, oh, 1991 was it and everything is just that in my head. Like you have to like be able to appreciate new stuff and stuff that's,
man,
you know, you got to keep an open mind.
If you want advice, that's the advice. Always, never get like I always think of it as old think, where people are like, back in my day, it's like no, you can't live in that world.
Yeah,
there's only today, and you can love all of those things that are behind you, but you got to be able to do what's coming down the line, especially if you want to be a self-employed artist. Like you have to be able to evolve and develop. And it's like, I mean, it's too many people get stuck in that hole, you know? And it's like, no,
I saw it happen. I knew all these amazing artists in Texas that technically way better than me, ideation way better than me. I mean, just beautiful paintings, beautiful drawings. They couldn't function. They couldn't function as people. And then when computers came along, they're like, no. And I'm like, well, it's just another pencil, dude. Like, get into it, right? You know,
I haven't drawn on a piece of paper in 4 years since I got a tablet. And since I got,
I'm getting that way. It's like I was like, no, I'm going to still draw everything, and I did because sell the originals, right? But now it's just like there's so much to do, and like I've gotten pretty good with the. Oh, if you know anybody, I've got basically a brand new 27-inch Cintiq for sale, $1,000.
Well, the one that I have sitting next to me, I bought from you for $1,000. And since I got that, now I don't even paint on canvas anymore. I do all my paintings digitally now. I
bought the big new fancy one.
Well, maybe I'll buy that one from you.
I have another one ready. So
since I've had this one
it's only like 2.5 years old. It's like basically brand new. I just don't have the box.
Oh, all right.
But it's a 27-inch HD. So if you know anybody that needs one,
anybody out there wants to buy Kozik's Cintiq,
$1,000, it's a deal of the century.
Message me and I'll put you in contact with Frank. Because that was a deal he gave me on my Cintiq.
And I guarantee you it'll pay for itself in a week.
Oh, dude, the one that I bought from you paid for itself in the first month, for sure. For sure it did. Because I went from like a cheap, like $300 Chinese knockoff one because I wanted to see if I wanted to work that way. And then I liked it immediately. And then when I was up there helping you move out of that space, you're like, oh, hey, you want to buy this? And I was like, walk down to the bank, got $1,000, walk back over. And it's like, I love that thing, man.
Well, I mean, they're really well made. You know, the size, the way it counterbalances, you can put it right in your lap. I mean, it's not like I tried Procreate on the iPad, can't do it. It's like too small. It's just too wacky. You know, I still need a fake light table, basically. So to me, the Cintiq is just like a light table that makes magic.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree. Yeah, I also agree with you. One of the things that you were saying when you were saying like how to, if you want to try to do it as an artist, is it's like you have to realize that every single other person in your life is not going to understand your passion for it. And so the people around you are going to be like, what are you doing? And you're going to
Must
be
be
like,
nice to
and
just sit around and watch TV all day.
I know you have a fun job. Like you're lucky you have a fun job. And it's like, no, I have an obsession in it and I can't sleep because in the middle of the night, my brain fires up and like has all these ideas. And then I got to spend all day trying to get myself positioned to make them. And people don't often understand having that level of passion that artists do. So you will have times in your life when you're lonely because nobody will want to deal with your bullshit. But you just, it's about perseverance too. It's like, how bad do you want to do it? Like, I think sometimes people don't understand that this is like a lifelong commitment to doing this. And it's not,
Yeah, the thing is that like, I tell my wife, and I mean, we've been married a long time and we still have those issues. And it's just like,
yeah,
I go,
of course.
She's like, it's just easy for you. You can just make a phone call and get money and all this shit. And I'm like, well, you try doing it sometime, right? I just don't complain about it and I don't bring it home, right? I've always been, because of the music scene, I had friends that became very famous musicians and I watched them self-destruct because they could not separate fantasy from reality anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They started to believe their own shit too much and it fucked them up because,
sure.
Backstage doesn't exist. No matter how successful you are, you don't go to a magic world where everything is bliss. It doesn't exist. You
come off a tour at some point.
you're still yourself, right? You still got to take a shit. You still got to look in the mirror. You still got to bum out about the shit that you bum out about. And so early on, I've always kept my two worlds very separate. Like there's the career Frank, right?
Sure.
And there's like normal Frank that has like his friends and his activities that have nothing to do with the job, right?
Yeah.
And my wife is very firmly in. She helps me like with the business because she's good with money, right? But she's part of my normal life, and you have to have that, even if you're doing it out of your house. When you walk out of the workroom, it's mentally healthy to leave all the work behind. I mean, you're going to think about it, obsess, yes, interior, like you're always working and always getting to ideas, and you need to be
always.
able to. So, but we still have the arguments where I'll be completely, and like I'm getting texts about some random thing, and I'm like, look, I'm sorry, you're just sitting down there with the movie on, right? I'm like, no, this is what it looks like, but I'm actually working. So yeah, it can be weird, and people. And the sad thing is that like, because of like, I'm a physically large person and I have really bad teeth, so I don't smile a lot. People think I'm a mean person, which I'm not actually. And so they'll get these, or they'll look at some of my work and assume I'm a certain way, which I'm not, right?
Of course.
So there are a lot of, and I'm not complaining. I've had if I was religious, I would say a blessed life. I've been very lucky. I've had an amazing time and I have a good time every day. And I get to do exactly what I want to all the time.
Yeah.
But it's not, I'm not going to say it's been easy. It's been the way that's worked for me, no formal training. I want to learn to do something. Usually what happens is I'll get access to like images or technology and then I want to fuck with it. And then like my career has transitioned, right? From this kind of, and then those skills accumulate, and after a while, you can kind of do everything, right? So,
yeah, that sounds familiar.
So young people will often ask me for advice, right? And I'll tell them shit like they don't want to hear. I'll tell them shit like, don't go to school. Like, if your parents are willing to fork over $200K to send you to the art school, no. Ask them for $100,000, rent a space, buy equipment, and just start making stuff. You'll have more success, right? Like, and people don't want to hear that kind of stuff. They want to hear that there's a magic key that anybody can be creative, anybody can be good. And like the other thing I have to tell people is that like, no matter how technically skilled you are, you have to have an eye. And the eye comes from a broad range of experience and a broad range of introspection and observation and ingestion, and just a natural innate flair for some unknown thing that cannot be taught.
Yeah, it's taste,
Okay.
right? And it comes, taste is part of that too. Like,
So
you
there is
have to
that-
develop good taste for things that
So-
are interesting.
So, that's the thing. Like my style is based on my limitations. I can only draw or paint or whatever to a certain degree of technical ability. All right.
Sure. Yeah, same.
But for whatever reason, I've been really lucky with like color and ideation. Okay. So people look at my work and they're like, your stuff is garbage. Why are you successful? I go, well, it's got something. I don't know what it is. It's got something people like and people can connect with. Right. Whereas like, I see these painters that are like, I would literally give a leg to be able to paint that well, but they just paint like the most boring fucking shit. They just paint like Batman or something over and over again. And I'm like, man, if I had those technical skills, I could create universes, right?
Dude, totally.
It's a weird scene.
I remember one time, one of the things I remember when we were first becoming friends is you were like, "I mean, I don't like, all I care about is getting up tomorrow and being able to continue to make shit that looks cool. Like, I don't have any big artist statement. Like, I'm not a great renderer. I can't, like, I'm not an artist. Like, I just make cool shit. Like, people want to look at.
I just like making it happen.
Yeah, dude.
Like,
totally.
it doesn't really matter what it is. I get equally excited over like something super cool, something super lame. It's just being able to pull it off is a win every time. That's the one nice thing. If your career is at all successful, whatever success means to me, is you do get to win every day. And that's really nice.
Yeah, I agree too. It's like, it was like with the goalie mask business that I started. It was like, I didn't know how to do that. I just knew that I wanted to do it. So I just started doing it. Mm-hmm. And then like, before I knew it, it was like, it was hugely successful. And then it ended up turning into more work for you. So, and that's the other thing, is you never know what the thing you're doing now, what it's going to be applicable to in the future. So you just like, I know I've always been super excited about like some new challenge. Like every 5 years or so, like I try to challenge myself to learn something completely new. It was like video game graphics, and then it was like painting, and then it was graphic design, rock posters, and goalie masks, and now it's this show.
It's a weird trip, man. Like I say, I started out making like black and white Xerox collages.
Yeah, same. And, well, I did that too, for sure. And
now I'm designing shit for like Star Wars and Disney and SpongeBob and myself and the city of Berlin and, all this fucking weird shit. So it's crazy where it'll take you if you keep an open mind and if you just get up every day and do it. And like,
yeah, for sure.
And kids, don't drink and don't get high, because that shit will fuck your brain up and you won't be able to work right.
Agreed to that. Cause that is definitely one of the things I've always known about you. Since we've been friends, is you don't partake. Like once in a while, I'll see you have a beer. When I was
young, I would get fucked up, but
once in a while, I'd see you have a beer. I remember when you turned 40, you're like, I'm done with everything. And then when I turned 40, I was like, I'm pulling a Kozik and I'm done with everything. But I never really did drugs or whatever, but I quit smoking and I quit over drinking and
I quit getting high maybe when I was like 25 or something, because I had a really bad experience with it, and it made me sort of like reappraise my life situation a little bit.
Mm-hmm. That'll happen, especially also, in a place like Austin in the mid 80s.
And also, my father was a really bad alcoholic, so I know what alcoholics do to other people, and he died a young, miserable death from it. Mm-hmm. And I definitely don't want to go that way. So I just never. I mean, I have an addictive personality, and that's one reason why I stay away from like drugs and alcohol, because I would be the guy to become a full-blown junkie.
Oh, totally. So that's why I never did drugs, is I knew it was going to be a bad fucking, it would be bad for me. Like I would never be able to be the person who could do a little.
Right. So I kind of like managed to reroute that energy into, whatever it is I do all day long.
You used your obsessive nature to become a famous artist. Look at you.
Well, I wouldn't say famous. I would say I'm making a living.
Yeah, no,
which is, awesome.
So, I'd say, I don't know. I guess famous is is subjective, I guess.
And the other weird thing about me, is like I really like the business side.
Yeah, I don't.
So, like I get a kick out of like, okay, that line came out great. That looks good. I get a kick out of that, and I get a kick out of making a deal happen. So, I've never been, like I can be the man when I have to. I can talk to the man when I have to. Like I know how to talk to, business. You know what I'm saying? Like, because that is also an art of its own. So it's interesting to work both sides of the fence.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is like if you act like you know what you're doing, people will just assume you know what you're doing.
Fake it till you make it.
Exactly, totally, man, totally. That was when I was a repo man, and my dad was training
except maybe
me.
some scientists, engineer guys, right, that really know their shit, right, or like highly skilled surgeons. Everybody else in the world, dude, or maybe like a master violinist. Everybody else in the world, dude, is just making shit up.
As they go,
I'm telling you, like I know some high powered motherfuckers, and they're just like, yeah, we're just making shit up. Like, so it all kind of works the same way.
Yeah, I guess that's probably true. I mean, what are you gonna do? You're either gonna go for it or you're not, I guess. And it's like I'm happy that I've been able to, like, I just don't care. Like, I just don't care
here's the thing.
if I know how to do something or not. I'm going to try to do it anyway.
Right. Well, here's the thing. Like, I'm almost 60. Okay. So, no one's eternal. I got maybe 10, I'm lucky 15 years left in me. Right. And I'm fucking dead or fucked up and old. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'll tell anybody that is listening, if they want to do something like this, is like, just fucking go do shit, because because your life goes by so fucking fast. It's unreal. And nobody fucking cares what you do. Like, nobody really cares. Nobody's really watching you. No one's judging you. No one's watching you. Okay. So if you want to do stuff and take chances, you're way better off giving it a shot, because if you don't, you'll end up old and dead anyways, and like you'll never have done the shit you wanted to do. So just
and if people are watching and judging, fuck them anyway. Who cares what they think? Who cares what they think about you or what you're doing? Do your thing. You make you happy. You only have one life, and you only get so much time. And the only thing in this life you can't get more of is time. So you got to use what you have to the most that you possibly can. Like, that is absolutely my philosophy. You have to do the things in life you want to do, because it's your life to do them with.
No one else can do it for you.
And nobody, like you said, nobody cares.
Nobody
really
cares.
I mean, when I had my kids, I had to care a little bit, because they were, they counted on me to take care of them. So I had to do some years doing the video game job that I didn't want to do. But the minute I didn't have to, I was out of there and back to doing what I wanted to do. And I've been doing it every single day for the last 11 or 12 years. It's awesome. I get up every day just like you, and I get to do exactly what I want to do. It's killer. All right, man. I appreciate your time. We're gonna chat again if for a minute after this, that people on the Patreon can get a little bonus time with Kozik. We're gonna talk about the man's room stuff a little bit.
You love me to talk shit.
I appreciate your time, and we'll talk again soon. And hang out, and we'll get this Patreon stuff done.
And cut.